Hey folks, David Stewart here. Let me tell you about why it's bad that you get what you want. That is why it's bad when the robot delivers to you content that you like. When you let the algorithm give you what you want, that's actually turns out kind of a bad thing on the large scale, like on the long run and in the second order sort of effects. It's very fun for you in the present, especially when you're really enjoying something that the robot is giving you a lot of what you want. Maybe the robot gave you this video and this is what you want. And I'm really happy that you're here. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Oh, yes. And I do sell books. You can buy a book and read it. I've had a lot of fun writing those books, so maybe you'll have fun reading them as well. So the contrast between the algorithm deciding tastes and tastemakers deciding tastes is pretty profound. If you think about the development of popular media, popular music, or popular art, movies, say before around 1997, what we tend to call cultural ground zero, but that's a whole nother discussion. And after, what you see is with the rise of the internet, and especially once we get things like Spotify, YouTube, where we have algorithms that are pushing people into lanes where they're seeing lots of the same thing over and over again, there's a big contrast. Styles developed, styles changed, things came into style and things went out of style because of tastemakers. Now, I'm not a big defender of tastemakers because, you know, I'm a rebellious guy. I'm like, why should someone else get to decide what I listen to? But certainly before 1997, when you had this conglomeration of all of the radio stations, tastemakers were really good. They were a really good filter that performed a vital function. That is, you'd have a lot of local radio stations. You'd have DJs that had a lot of power to decide what people were going to like and going to hear. They would find new bands, local bands, maybe things that were part of the local scene. They would play them on the air. People would respond to them. They would take that feedback in and sort of develop tastes with people. They might find things that are more obscure to play on the radio. They might find things that are really popular to play alongside them. They might find things that are from a new and exciting scene, you know, the Seattle grunge scene, or the the Seattle metal scene at one point, or the Florida death metal scene, or whatever it's going to be, the Bay Area thrash, those sorts of pieces of music, or West Coast rap, whatever it's going to be, bringing those more local scenes where they're developed as part of this tastemaker process and bringing them out to the bigger audience where they kind of spread organically and become really popular. And then, of course, you know, the popularity wanes and other things become popular. But you see this feeling that, like, there's a sound of the late 60s, a sound of the 70s, a sound of the 80s. We have these different sounds develop. And then after about the year 2000, things are just the same. Every microgenre stays frozen and everybody's in their own little silo. People have used this word on the channel before. They're siloed. They're in their little silo, just listening to one kind of music over and over and over again, whatever it's going to be. And the algorithm, the robot, gives them more and more of that. And if you're in that silo, if you're, you know, if let's say you're playing like Scandinavian black metal or something, you're in your silo, you listen to that, there's a pretty narrow range of what's acceptable style for that. And if you step outside of that, the fans don't like it. So you get this kind of recursion where anytime you're too far away from the deviated tropes, or you deviate too far from the established tropes, then you end up in a problem where the people in the silo don't like the music and they reject it. So you end up with no development at all. Like, has there been a development in Scandinavian black metal since the early 2000s? I can't think of one, right? But this goes for like every genre. Like, you could go find, it's like, has rap developed? No, it hasn't really changed. You know, has EDM changed? It's pretty much the same. Everything's pretty much the same as it was 20 years ago. Now, I mentioned the year 1997 a lot because there was a lot of things that happened in 1997, but the big one was the I'm trying to remember the congressional act, but basically it let it so you could own more radio stations. You can own an unlimited number of radio stations. So you had one company that bought up all the radio stations called Clear Channel Communications. It's now iHeartRadio. It changed its name because people really hated that it did this. And so instead of having all these local tastemakers where things could move and change, it was one program director for the entire country. You went to every major city, you heard the same songs in every major city across the United States, which meant you had one guy who was making the taste. And the result was a bunch of crap. Like, that's, if you're picking a year where music went from lots of different kinds of stuff and a lot of it good to Not a lot of different stuff, and most of it bad. It was the year 1997. Why didn't people open up better radio stations? It was actually illegal. So this is one of the problems with deregulation: is you deregulate one part of the situation, which is how many radio stations can you own, but you don't deregulate the other part, which is the FCC passes out licenses and actually protects the radio stations in a given market by not giving out licenses for a competing radio station. So if you're playing contemporary adult music, no one can open up a radio station that plays contemporary adult music. So you can't really, there's no competition. Competition's illegal. So when Clear Channel bought everything up, of course, they owned every rock station. They could assign all the tastes for rock music. They owned every pop station. Everybody's going to be listening to Spice Girls and Britney Spears and NSYNC and Backstreet Boys, and that's what people are going to be listening to. And everybody's going to be listening to these 5 rap artists and these 5 rock artists. It became really bad. So, while I think most of our perception of music has gotten worse over the years, has to do with us being really attached to the things when we're young, there is, I think, a big decrease in the quality of music around 1997. And keep in mind, I was 14 in 1997. So this should be the music that I'm most attached to, and I actually hate it the most of any period of music. Is about 1997 to about 2002 was just abysmal. And once I was able to not listen to the radio anymore and get in my silo and listen to power metal and listen to the stuff that basically I wasn't allowed to listen to after 1997 on the radio, I had to go really far out of my way to hear any real metal after 1997. But I got in my little silo. I was really happy to do that. And while you're happy for a while, the second order effect of having no tastemakers, and certainly not distributed tastemakers in the music world, is that everything becomes static. You become locked into place and nothing changes. There's no new artists that emerge that have a new and interesting sound that everybody's really excited to listen to. There's no more Michael Jacksons. There's no really big pop stars that can command a huge audience. And there's also no exciting new trends that pop out. There's not going to be another Nirvana. There's not going to have an explosion of a scene like what you had with Seattle kind of blow up and have everybody listening to it almost organically. It took a while for Nirvana to really break into the mainstream. I think people forget that Nirvana had, they had an album before Nevermind, and Nevermind wasn't an immediate hit when it came out. It took a while for people to catch on and hear those couple singles and really enjoy the music, and for MTV to really blow it up. MTV as a tastemaker is to me, it's kind of similar to Clear Channel because it's one station that makes the tastes. But for a long time, MTV, I think, was responding to the lower level tastemakers. It's responding, you could see alt rock kind of videos on MTV or alt metal, you would see Typo Negative and stuff like that, things that just kind of got booted out of the mainstream after 1997. You'd see those on MTV. So MTV, I think, was actually a more open platform than what Clear Channel became. But anyway, I digress. The point is, when we're in the silo and we're letting the robot just feed us what we've expressed, we express our preferences through what we choose, and then the robot just gives us more of that. The algorithm gives us more of that. When we get in that mode, it becomes really boring, and I certainly get very bored of it. And I've remarked, one of the reasons, why is there a decrease in interest in metal? I'm because metal has gotten stale. It's gotten really stale. Very few bands are really pushing any kind of envelope or trying to do anything new stylistically, and not even trying to do things that are new within their own sound, because you don't want to alienate your fans. If you've already established your sound and your band, you just kind of try to ride that wave. You don't take a lot of chances, and that's unfortunate. I feel like bands used to take a lot more chances. The fact that you had a band like Metallica come out with albums like Load and even Saint Anger, which I'm not a fan of Saint Anger, but it was a big risk. They were willing to do something that was different, and I just don't see very many bands that are really willing to do that. Or Rush, Rush used to do different things all the time. They reinvented themselves so many times. Modern bands just don't do that. They just don't take the risk. They stay in their silo. They try to cultivate their fan base that already likes what they're doing. And I see the same thing with books. You have these little micro genres. You have the Amazon robot that gives people, you like this kind of story, I'm going to give you as many of those. I'm going to throw as many of those as you want, as I can at you, and hope that you buy some. And for a while you like it because you're getting a lot of what you already like, but then the boredom sets in. And this has to do with the fact that there's no one driving tastes anymore. There's no artistic filter that happens. It's all just an algorithm that's directing people to their little micro tastes. And people get bored of that. I think they get bored of not having enough variety. It's fine to be a big fan of one small genre, but in the past, you would always get exposed to more than that. You could be a huge fan of horror movies, but you were always watching movies that weren't horror. Now you really could just watch nothing but horror if you wanted to, if that was like what you really wanted to pursue there. Anyway, that's my point about that, is that I think that there's a big hole that's necessary for tastemakers, whether that's publishers in the book realm, to have more publishers come in and really push tastes, push new things, or I don't know how we would do it in music. I'm not sure about music curation, who really could curate music in a way that could drive tastes and change tastes and expose people to new and interesting things that are outside their wheelhouse. There just isn't that mass media anymore. There's no, people don't really watch MTV. They seek out a specific video on YouTube, and then the robot gives them more of that. Or they're not really listening to the radio really anymore. So I don't know how you could bring more of that kind of distributed taste making back into things. Maybe YouTubers reviewing more albums. I don't know what the solution is, but I would love to hear if you guys have a solution to that particular problem. It's just a lot of times we like the upside and we forget about the downside. And the downside is very apparent to me in 2025 when I'm like, a band comes out with an album and it sounds exactly like the album that they put out in 2005. They haven't changed at all. I don't feel like bands used to do that. Bands used to evolve. So anyway, give me your thoughts, and I'll check you all next time. Have a great, great day. Don't forget, you can buy my music. I don't know if you could buy that music on Amazon, but you can buy my books on Amazon. This one you get free if you join my mailing list, dvspress.com/list. And you can check out my music at zulonline.com, and have a great, great day.